Hello. Welcome to the Paladin episode, number 12. I was going to say number 12 Paladins, but there you go. But there's not 12 Paladins, there's a whole bunch. But yeah, it's the two wizards. We're here to talk about stuff. We've had a week off. Our brains are turning to mush because we're that old. And I am Shane, and this is Andrew. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, how are you doing?
I tend to wave in that direction, not at the camera, just in that way. But we had last week off because Andrew wasn't feeling well, and we
Yeah,
sent a few healing spells that way, and he drank a few potions, and yeah, you're back,
I am.
and
Yeah,
you're
I had a
busy
long
as
rest.
all hell. Tell people why you're so busy.
Well, yeah, luckily the 1,300 pounds of books have now, the pile has, it's not quite as tall. So we probably have about 400 or 500 pounds of books left. I was just thinking this morning, like what countries we've shipped to already. And quickly, I would say England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, US and Canada, of course, Australia, France, Germany, Denmark, Austria, Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands. I think that's most of the ones we've done already. And then, of course, there's more to go. And we haven't. So the new book, that's the current book that which the Kickstarter made last year, Monsters of the Wilderness, like Shane has, and our copy made its
Oh yeah,
way all the way over there,
that's right.
across the
it
boundary.
it went it went right through. We just
Yeah,
pulled
it
it
would have
this
been
way.
easier if I just passed it to you.
Oh, mine
So
keeps beaming up.
the other announcement is that the Kickstarter for the next book will likely announce it tomorrow, and we'll put up a promo video on this YouTube channel as well. And yeah, so book number 5 in the Monsters series, and we keep trying to be more creative and have more different kinds of colors and shapes and different kinds of creatures, and be more take more chances with the stat blocks and the mechanics to try to do something unique. Like one of my favorite changes that we made, I don't think anybody had done before, is our dream dragon in Feyland. Its breath actually creates a hallucinatory terrain, a dream terrain, where you actually have to fight the dragon, and the only way for your party to get out of that terrain is to kill the dragon. So
Oh
that sort
wow,
of thing. Yeah, I think that's a pretty unique
I think I didn't see that one.
feature. That's not in the new
Hmm.
book. That's in Feyland.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah,
Which is
so
over
we're
there.
always trying to do things like that. In the new book, there's a sea creature that sends out a giant bubble that will trap creatures inside it, and you'll be floating around in this bubble in the water.
Well, I mean, that's the cool thing about the having resources with different creatures in it because as creative as a lot of DMs are, sometimes you're tired or you get sick and you haven't prepped enough time or whatever gets in the way. And having like that kind of sort of thing of like, oh, I need something for that thing and the thing and the there we go. It's gonna be the polar bear armored, so we're gonna do that, and that'll be fine. And then, but then you get that kind of that boost of energy where even if you choose not to use it or modify it in some
Yeah,
way to fit your adventure, then you at least get those creative juices flowing. Because I have an addiction to collecting objects, like different types of weapons and different types of things, and I've done that for years for D&D, but um, so it kind of every so often I go, I should really make a book that has nothing to do except just talk about objects, like different magical
yeah,
items, stuff like that, because I remember years ago trying to figure out what the hit point value of a galleon was because I had a galleon in my adventure and I'm like, I have no idea. A wood, I guess, would have but what kind of wood are they using? And but the wood is bigger in ships because it's
yeah.
structurally la da da. So that was kind of fun. I mean, it was completely ludicrous at the end of the day
Yeah,
when I figured it out, but it was just the process was the best part. So
right, right.
anyway.
Yeah, I think they did that in this edition. They do have costs for ships. I think in the Dungeon Master's Guide, I think a galleon is like 20,000 gold pieces.
Yeah, they are insanely expensive.
Yeah,
Although kind of cool if you could get one.
Yeah,
Hint,
for sure.
hint, dropping hints.
Well,
Uh,
the one party in our Greyhawk campaign do have a ship in port. They're just quite far from that ship right now.
oh, well, that's true.
Yeah, remember you had a character whose backstory she decided to basically make her character into Han Solo, and so the ship is called the Storming Falcon, and it's
Right.
a sailing ship, and now you actually took control of it, and now it's in port, back in the Wild Coast. But right now you're in the mountains with the giants, and you're trying to get back there.
Exactly. Yeah, because yeah, and I missed the last session, which sucked. I mean, it was Easter, but still, I kind
Yeah,
of
you
wanted
missed a
to.
character death.
I know. I saw that like a couple
Yeah,
hours later. I'm like, okay, people have left. Okay, da da da. What time is it? I missed it, but whatever. What's happened? And then that's the first message at the very top of the screen is, so and so what died? What?
yeah,
I'm like, oh no.
yeah. A
So,
white dragon, which you know, yeah, yeah. 13th
but it
level
was it a
fighter.
paladin that died?
A 13th level fighter died
Ah,
against a white dragon. Yeah,
that's too bad. Well, there will be drinking and song after that to
definitely,
commemorate
definitely.
the
And
death.
yeah, and speaking of warriors, today we're going to talk about one of the other fighter types, warrior types. We've talked about rangers and fighters. Today we talk about my favorite, paladins. And you can see behind me on the wall of the office there's a famous Larry Elmore painting called Paladin. It was on the cover of a Dragon magazine back in the 80s. And yeah, definitely a favorite of mine. So these are the archetype of the holy warrior, an adventurer who usually makes an oath. They're very connected to their deity. They uphold justice and righteousness. They hunt down evil wherever it is. They're weapon masters. They're devotion. They're very devoted. And in the fifth edition, they have a lot of healing they can do, and they're a tank. Many times, a paladin is a knight. Quite often, a noble too, but they don't have to be. And some quick examples here. One of the most obvious is Lancelot from the Arthurian legends, and some of those other knights in the Knights of the Round Table would be paladins. Michael from the Dresden Files, a series of books, he's really basically a paladin. Some more unusual examples would be Captain America from the comics. He's kind of a paladin type. Sort of Luke Skywalker as well, and some of the Jedi. Some people
I would
also
agree with that.
say,
Yeah.
yeah, I think some of the Jedi, I would say a lawful good paladins. Some people say Joan of Arc. I think there's some
Yeah.
connection there, but I would say she's chaotic. I wouldn't say she's lawful. Um, but she has some
Yeah. But
qualities of
yeah.
a paladin for sure. Some qualities.
That would be a complex character to play, like if a
Yeah,
Joan of Arc like character, because it's not that they're drifting towards evil; it's they're drifting towards like, oh, I'm hearing voices. I've got all these things going on in my head that are driving me forward,
yeah.
and I think we've actually had some characters that were kind of like that, that were paladins, um, But
In
but
our
I like the
adventures,
Captain
yeah,
America one. I hadn't thought of Captain America at all, actually, but he totally would be. Like
yeah. He's
he is the
full on.
quintessential. This is what a paladin would be in the modern age,
Yeah,
and yeah,
yeah, 100%. And I would say again too that alignment rears its head here because there's been a push. I didn't actually play second, third, three and a half, or fourth edition. I took a huge break from D&D. And
yeah.
in that time, somehow other alignments like were allowed to be paladins, and now any alignment can be a paladin technically. To me, that doesn't make any sense at all. To me, the only paladin, or what a paladin is lawful good, because that clearly defines a paladin. And if you're not like lawful evil paladin, that's an anti-paladin, which we actually have a creature for in our city book. And anti-paladins have been part of D&D for quite a long time, but they're not paladins and they're not player characters. Anything chaotic doesn't follow the lawful path of a paladin, so that doesn't work. And neutral obviously doesn't work, and lawful neutral doesn't work either. I don't think. And I'll give you a
You
quick,
kind of
I'll give
think
you a
of
quick,
like an anti-paladin. Oh yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say, I'll give a quick example because you look at alignment in the fifth edition player's handbook. Okay. It's very, very brief and it doesn't offer you very much. And lawful good, it says creatures do the right thing as expected by society. Examples: paladins. It's right in the book. Paladins, gold dragons, and dwarves. Okay. Most dwarves are lawful good. They say that, but they say straight up paladins are lawful good. Here in this, earlier in the book, they say you can be whatever you want. Now they say no. So
However,
lawful neutral individuals act in accordance with law, tradition, or personal codes. So that doesn't mean that it's good. Um, a lawful neutral person is not necessarily, they're not good and they're not evil. If they're not good, they're not a paladin. You look at the original player's handbook. Okay, now this has a much bigger section on alignment. It's not right at the beginning. Neither book puts it right at the front of the book, which is interesting. But it says lawful good. Um, while strict in their prosecution of law and order, these characters follow these precepts to improve basically the common good. Certain freedoms must be sacrificed in order to bring order, but truth is of the highest value and life and beauty of great importance. So that sounds like Captain America too, and Superman, right? That's to me that sounds like Superman.
exactly.
Um, lawful neutral. Regulation is the most important, taking a middle road between evil and good. This is the ultimate harmony of the world and the universe. The ultimate hope rests on law and order. Evil and good are immaterial. So that cannot be a paladin because a paladin is a good creature. It is a holy good creature. That's what paladin means. Um, so that's my take anyway. And I know somebody recently said, there's kind of a push away from alignment. You did a Monsters of the City book, which just leans heavily into alignment and says, here it is. And yeah, that's my take for sure.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because in terms of when you think about D&D being, of course, like this a plane of existence that you can play with and change and do all these things, and depending on what kind of style of play you actually want, you're going to make decisions based on whether or not characters are going to be purely evil or characters can be purely good. Being purely evil, unless the entire party is totally evil, I guess would kind of work. But then I'd be concerned about, character X walking up to character Y and being like, stab, those kinds of things. So that doesn't
Yeah.
really work. But in respect to the paladin part, I could totally see the paladins being what they are. But also, the only way that you could not be that is if you were the anti-paladin, which, because it's basically good and evil. Like, you've got these two sides of the coin.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was actually thinking earlier when you were talking about examples that you can't have, say, Fat Thor from the End Game, uh, pretend he's a paladin, but he'd be sitting around just kind of wondering about life. Oh, geez, I'm really sad because this stuff didn't work out. And it's like, no, dude, you're supposed to be like, it would be like Captain America sitting around getting a ton of weight and smoking and, being existential about
Yeah.
existence and sad about, the world seemingly going down the toilet, which would never happen. It's like stuff's gotten
Yeah.
bad. We got to
It
fix it.
doesn't,
Let's go.
yeah, it doesn't make sense. Like if you think about it, okay, say they had like an angel race or class, and they said, and then in the beginning of D&D, it was lawful good because that's an angel. And then as the game went on, they're like, well, actually, if you want, you can be any alignment you want, and you can even be a fiendish angel. Well, it doesn't make any sense. Um,
Those are called devils.
yeah, exactly. And that's the whole thing. Like, if all the classes start to become the same and all the races start to become the same, that's not an interesting game. That's not an interesting story, right? Then every story is the same as well. Like, that interesting characters and interesting stories have definition. If you want to be an edgy fighter, or like in, an anti-paladin version or whatever, then you can choose to be a fighter or a ranger or a barbarian, right?
Yeah.
Um, Instead, they keep trying to push everything almost to be the same, so that every character you can all do a little bit of healing, you can all fight, you can all do a bit of magic. And I think those definitions are more interesting, and if you take that away, you kind of lose what the class or the race is.
Well, exactly. And I mean, the trying to have all these classes equal in a way, I guess, or sharing common traits where everyone is going to be good or everyone's going to be bad or middle. I mean, it doesn't work because it's like I was talking to a friend of mine recently about uh, telling them about the Matrix. They had never seen it,
Right, right,
and it's like the whole idea about the Matrix is like version 3.0 or whatever, because the first one was everyone's happy, everyone's got what they need, and but the brain of the human was like, meh, this doesn't work, and I need some pain and suffering and to define who we are, and
right.
that kind of stuff, and trying to humanize basically an angel in terms of paladins. I mean, you, that's what they are. You just it's a thing. If you don't want to be one, as you said, be a fighter.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the
but the
general paladin in fifth edition, which I think is a great, paladins are such a great class. Um, they have there's one right now in that campaign we talked about with the party where the character just died. If the paladin, there's a paladin there, an NPC. If he wasn't with the party right now, they'd all be dead for sure. Seriously.
total
Um,
party kill.
yeah, because you rescued him in the Temple of Elemental Evil. He's this prince, this elf prince. And so anyway, the general paladin has a 1d10 for their hit points, which is pretty strong, like rangers and fighters. Their skills you can choose from: athletics, insight, intimidation, medicine, persuasion, and religion. So those all really fit in with that tone. Armor, of course, you can use any kind, and shields. Weapons, martial and simple. So like most of the other warrior types. And then your general features, you have divine smite, where you can imbue your weapons with radiant damage using spell slots. That's amazing. Um, I usually rarely cast any spells if I'm playing a paladin, and I put all my spell slots into using smite. Um,
Nice.
Lay on hands is really powerful again. So 5 times your paladin level, you have a pool of hit points you can use to heal other creatures or yourself, and you can
Right.
split it up. So if you're like, you have a 10th level paladin, this elf guy with your party, he's got 50 points in his healing pool. So he can give like 25 to 2 people and really heal them quite a bit. Or if somebody is on, death's door, he could give them 50 hit points. Um, or you can actually use a bunch of them to cure a disease or neutralize poison too. Um, they have fighting styles like the other warriors. One of theirs includes protection, so they can be a really good bodyguard, or they can be really good at protecting maybe a spellcaster in the party, for example.
Right.
They have some spells. I'll just talk about a few. So they have cure wounds. They've got lots of extra smite spells. Um, Find Steed, um, Zone of Truth. The Find Steed actually saved my life as a paladin once. I
Really?
was I was in a bar in the Giants adventure that we did, and one of our party were a member of the Zentarium, this like sort of evil brotherhood, and that person just tried to basically get me killed. This is why you don't have evil characters in the party, or neutral characters even sometimes. So I had to get out, and the only way I could do that, I think that's what I cast, was Find Steed, and a creature came into the bar. I got on this thing and rode right out, and then rode out of town. There's also divine health later on, so you're immune to disease. You get an extra attack at 8th level. You have some different auras where if people are close enough to you, they get certain kinds of protection and bonuses. and then your smite improves as you get to higher levels as well. That radiant
Okay.
damage that you can add. So there's a lot. There's a lot there. They have, and again, I don't think you need to add too much to that.
No, because when I was playing, I think was it when we were playing um oh my lord, what is the adventure called? It's like the most famous one with going into the vampire realm. Um
Strahd, Curse of
Thank you.
Strahd.
Because we played that a couple years back, and
Yeah,
I was a paladin, and we were really high level at that point, and yeah, I mean it was like the character that was the character to have during that adventure because it was anti-vampire everything when you
yeah,
get into those high levels, and being able to smash a a vampire and then have and I will also have this and this other thing, which also will add to the damage because they're evil characters and they must die. And I think I also had that sword that's kind of like a lightsaber uh,
oh
that
yeah, the Sun
gives
Sword.
off like divine light and
Yeah,
and sun rays and things. So that was pretty cool. And I seem to recall no, that was a different adventure. Never mind. But yeah, it was totally the one to have. Like completely, uh, every party should have one. Every
yeah,
party
they're
should have a paladin. I think
yeah.
is
I
really
think if you
the
don't have a cleric, you should have a paladin, or um, and if you have both, you're in such good shape.
yeah.
Because clerics, we're going to talk about those later. Clerics are pretty tough in fifth edition. They can actually do quite a lot in combat. Um, and they're like if you get pretty good armor with your cleric, you almost have it's almost like another paladin. They're almost a bit too tough in a way. Um,
Especially when
seriously.
you hear the phrase "I cast insert name of armor" here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All right, so we're not going to look at all the different versions of the Paladin. We'll just quickly go over the three in the player's handbook and mention um, that we actually have one in one of our books, and Cawood Publishing has. So the Oath of Devotion is really the classic Paladin. This is one that's in the player's handbook. Their ideals of justice, virtue, and order. Um, their features, they can make their weapon a sacred weapon where it glows in the dark, which is nice. They can actually turn undead like clerics. So again, here they're kind of pushing the envelope again, where they're turning clerics a bit into paladins and paladins a bit into clerics. So they can also get protection, the protection from evil spell permanently on them. It just is always around. And later on, at a high level, they get something called the Holy Nimbus, which can emanate an aura of sunlight, which again, like you said, the undead are not a fan of.
Oh,
Um,
exactly.
a really interesting paladin, I think, is the Oath of the Ancients. So this is a sort of like a Fey Knight or a Green Knight, and their tenets are mercy, kindness, forgiveness, song, beauty, and hope. And they have spells. Each of them has different spells. Um, this paladin actually has these magical vines they can use. They can also turn not just undead creatures. Instead of that, they can turn fey and fiends, which I think is an interesting. That's a nice twist.
Yeah,
Um,
I like that.
they have an aura that they can take to protect themselves from spell damage a bit, which is always useful. Um, they have a thing called where they can drop to 1 hit point instead of 0. So obviously that's pretty amazing. And later on, they can assume a force of a natural form of nature. So it's a very interesting paladin if you're especially if you're playing an elf or you're doing a Feyland kind of adventure, Feywild adventure, or if you want a paladin that's more connected to nature. It's a great, I think it's a great choice. We've had at least two of these in our stories in our campaigns. I know Sarah played one for sure.
Well,
The
I
other,
remember. I think mine was devotion when I played, but I haven't actually thought about playing a different Oath of the Ancients.
yeah,
Actually,
I
that's
like that one
actually
a
a good
lot.
idea.
The third
Hmm.
one, this is one and they've done a few of these recently. It's to me, it's not a paladin. It's called Oath of Vengeance. Um, who and they call them like one other term they use from it is Dark Knight.
Oh man.
um,
I gotta say, not a fan. Not
so
that's yeah.
they fight the greater evil, like whatever that, and they have no mercy. They're a paladin, but they have no mercy. Um,
The oath of Cobra Kai.
so
There is
again,
no mercy in this dojo.
yeah, this might make a great a good NPC as a Dark Knight. And also, they do have an anti-paladin or an evil paladin version in the Dungeon Master's Guide called. It's just slipped my mind right now. It's a different oath. We actually have a number of them in our non-player book, non-player character books. We have whole collections of them, and I've put some anti-paladins in there as NPCs with this subclass, which is uh, somehow drifted out of my mind. Um, so we do also have our own subclass in Monsters of the City. We have a paladin that's called the Order of the Heart, where it's a sort of more romantic paladin and a paladin who literally um, is called from within themselves to become a good knight and to become a holy knight, and they get a whole bunch of extra powers. One of them is at higher levels, a Pegasus just arrives and serves them. I like that.
That is cool.
Well, you need a flying horse. Here you go.
Of course. Who doesn't need a flying horse? I mean, really.
Yeah. Do you
I'm just trying to
remember?
find it in the book here.
Yeah, in the Dungeon Master's Guide, there's the oath of. It's there's some extra little bonuses they've added into the DMG there. A few extra um, classes that they've added, subclasses. I think there's one evil cleric and there's one evil paladin. Yeah. And while you're looking, I can ask if you've seen or if you remember the paladin that I played in the it was in the Giants adventure when Jay was our DM. Do you
Oh,
remember my paladin?
I have a vague memory of it. But there's this podcast that you can go and check if you haven't already at
Yes. Well,
theworldofmir.com.
I did find it. So it's the Oathbreaker
Oh, the
paladin.
Oathbreaker. Okay.
That's the Oathbreaker is the one I was trying to remember in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And I did have a paladin that I played in the new Giants adventure from fifth edition, the which is called the Storm King's Thunder. And in that story, my paladin ended up having a relationship with a dragon. Maybe it now will jog your memory a little bit.
It does now.
Do you
Yes.
remember that? So he actually met.
Well, that was a while ago, but yeah, it was
Yeah,
cool.
well, that would have been 3 or 4 years ago. So he met this woman who also was a holy warrior type, and they connected, and she helped our party quite a bit. And then at some point in the adventure, she just turned into a dragon in front of him, and she's actually a good dragon who can shape change.
I still love you.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
what I said.
you have to. You just can't.
She's it's not a big deal. Like love is love.
Love is love.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had several characters that had romantic entanglements, and I think even though I think one of them was a hag, still loved the hag. She was evil, was
Yes.
gonna want to kill everyone,
Yes, that
but
was very
still
interesting.
wanted to have that relationship to see if it would work. I
Right.
think he ended up killing her, or somebody did, but what
Yeah,
can you
yeah.
do?
You had to, yeah, you dealt with her. There was a coven of four hags that Shane and the party had to deal with. And one of them, Shane's character and her got pretty friendly, but he
They're
didn't
pretty
know.
friendly, and
He
yeah,
didn't
that
know
was
she was
that was
back.
actually the big thing is he didn't actually realize what had happened. Everyone else in the party, I think, knew what happened, but he just was
Right.
completely oblivious.
And
He was
definitely not a
completely smitten.
paladin.
Yeah, definitely not a paladin. Wow, definitely not a paladin in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
I have, I don't. Aside from that one paladin, I don't think I've played another paladin since. if memory serves, because I tried to kind of sprinkle around with outside of my tiefling addiction for a little while.
Right.
Um, there was definitely never a paladin since, so I should probably do that again.
Yeah, for some
That'll be my
reason.
backup character if we're all gonna die in this other adventure. I think that's gonna have to happen. So yeah,
Yeah, for some reason our the players in our group, there were two or three paladins early on when we started playing, and then it's at least 2 or 3 years, no more than that. It's at 3 or 4 years when there's not been a single player character paladin.
it's time. It is
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of room to play that sort of character. Like, I know just because you're lawful good and because you're a paladin doesn't mean that you need to be bland and um, like like for example, my half elf who now is dating a dragon, um, and he if he knew something was evil, he would just take it out, which is what a paladin would do. Um,
Yeah,
and I
there
remember,
needs a party of paladins just going around killing evil like that. Actually, that would be a cool adventure.
yeah, yeah, I think the idea of an all-party like a class with a party, an entire adventuring party, and everybody's the one class, the same class. I think some of the classes would be quite cool, and I think a paladin one would be interesting. A bard one would be hilarious, like you're all bards, and wizards. I love the idea of all wizards.
Yeah, why would a first level wizard party? I'm trying to think if that would actually survive. I always in the at early levels, I always think of
Yeah,
wizards as being like the weakest characters. Like they're
yeah.
there,
Well,
they're able to like do stuff from afar and kind of help out.
right.
But left on their own, they'd be eaten live by whatever they run into.
Well, if your DM was balancing things properly, you should
Good
be able
point.
to survive the first. If you survive in, I think in fifth edition, if you survive till kind of level 3, level 5, you're pretty much you're in pretty good shape. So you're right; they're squishy for sure, but their way around it is something that players don't do as much as they used to, which is that you should try and get some hirelings with you. So it would be
Yeah,
helpful to have, like you say, a few warriors around. But I do love the idea of like, all like a whole bunch of different wizards, very different characters, different kinds of spell, like, they follow different types of schools of magic. I think it would be really interesting. And yeah, it would be challenging at times when you had, with certain creatures, right? It'd be easy with some
yeah.
creatures. Um, like if you were dealing with a whole bunch of goblins attacking you in a forest, for example, that might be a challenge if you're in close combat. So you'd have to be more strategic than normal. I would say be able to use long range distance spells and to be very creative. I mean, it's just like playing a wizard in Skyrim, a mage in
Yeah.
Skyrim. You're really squishy, and you have to figure out a better way to be able to play that character to survive, because you're going to get killed easily if you're not smart.
Oh, exactly. Like I remember a number of years ago I was playing around when I first started playing again with your group.
Yeah,
Um, I was playing with another friend of mine who I'd grown up with, and he is really kind of a tough DM. Like he really wants you to think and strategize and whatnot.
yeah.
And I was a rogue. I was a rogue halfling, and I think I lost my weapons somehow. I've been arrested and my weapons were taken away from the character, and the whole
Oh,
idea was I
boy.
was trying to break in and get them back.
I'm
And
shocked.
yeah, exactly. And so I remember we were basically scoping out the building that they had all the confiscated weapons in and other equipment and stuff. And I was sitting there and I'm going, are we in like is this a populated area? Like it's middle of the day, we're kind of trying to plan this heist. And they're like, oh yeah, there's tons of people around. And I'm like, is there a guild nearby? And I just walked in, and the only thing my character had was gold. And so he threw gold on the ground and said, I want to break into that building. Who's ready to help me? And it was like suddenly I had like 5 or 6 NPCs that were ready to kind of help me do the heist.
Right.
And I sent them in. I think most of them died, but I did get in. But still, whatever. Definitely not a paladin. Um, God, I want to play. I want to make a paladin character now badly. Uh, we are going to be talking about other stuff next time. Uh,
Yes.
do you want to explain how that's going to work?
Sure. Yeah.
Not
We're
that it's
planning,
complex or anything, but
yeah.
still.
Yeah. We were planning on going, we're going to go through all the classes, obviously, but to have something a bit different, we're also going to look at monsters once in a while in the next few weeks too. So we'll continue our classes in a couple of weeks. And then next week, we're going to take a look at dragons and once in a while, we'll come and take a look at maybe one of the more iconic types of creatures in D&D. The other thing I should say is that we can do some giveaways too coming up, as our
Sweet.
Kickstarter announcement will go tomorrow, and the Kickstarter will launch May 10th. So as part of celebrating that and announcing that, we can have some giveaways as well. And as Shane said before, if you want to interact with us, our links below for Twitter, um, the place that somebody bought this week. Or if you want to contact us on Facebook or Instagram, those links are below as well.
Which have already been bought, so it's all okay.
Yeah.
But still, but yeah, I'm excited for dragons. I really am. I actually have a couple of books, like history books about dragons and fiction and stuff like that.
Oh,
So
cool. Yeah, I
I'm going
think
to
we
do
could
some
probably.
rereading and check it
Nice.
out.
I was saying we could probably talk about dragons for 2 or 3 shows.
We could. I mean, there are so many variants of dragons. Like there's the basic ones. You've got like red, green, black, gold, white, blue, etc.
Yeah.
But then you can get into like the metal ones, like bronze and gold and silver
Yeah.
and off the top of my head, I can't even think what is the difference between a white and a silver. I know that silver is good or
Yeah.
lawful good, but
Silver's good. Yeah.
white is definitely not. Definitely not a paladin. And they are, but there, yeah, there are so many of them, and there have been so many editions that have had different variants of them too, as well. I actually was at the bookstore a few days back, and I almost bought the DM's guide and the player's manual and a monster manual for 3.5, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I was like, nah, I don't feel like polluting my brain. But then I might go back and get them. You never know. Um, do you have any 3.5 manuals? Probably not.
No, like I said, I just know first edition and fifth edition. So and what I did in the late 80s as a starving student, I sold everything. And so now I've been regathering my old collection, and I
Nice.
have most of the adventures, and now I'm starting to gather the core books. So I think I have most of those. And
Yeah, I
luckily,
just ordered Tasha's book, and as well as what else did I get? The new the candle one, which I cannot think of the name of.
oh, okay.
Candle, the Keith one. I don't know. I've had underwhelming reviews, reading some underwhelming reviews,
Yeah,
but I still again I like you. I mean, I've lost a bunch of my books over time, and
right.
I'm rebuilding my collection. So, which everyone out there should be doing. Support Wizards of the Coast, regardless of what you think. Do it anyway because it's just a game. That's going on a T-shirt. That has to. It's just a game.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again, Andrew.
Thank
I'm
you.
very happy that we have gone through this, and I'm psyched for dragons. And of course, bye everybody. See you next week.
Later.